Hi, welcome to Parenting Parachutes. I'm Geraldine Peterson. I'm a mental health counselor who works with a lot of parents and a lot of kids, which means I end up working with their parents. And I'm here today to talk to you about why feelings are important to listen to. Not how to listen to them, but kind of background about why we even want to listen to those feelings. And here with me is Anna. Uh, to say hi. Hi,
Hello.
Anna.
Hi. I'm Anna. I'm a member here at Up&Up, and I happen to be a step parent, so this is all really good information for me.
Okay, so today I want to talk about what people tend to call negative feelings, anger and fear and um, sadness, and things that we tend to not want to have. Um, but it is those feelings are important, and um, we're going to kind of hopefully help you understand a little bit more why. And this is what tends to help people, the parents that I talk to, kind of understand a little bit more why those feelings are important. So I'm going to ask you, Anna,
Hmm.
some questions. And my first one is to think about one of your kids, one of your stepkids, and I don't want to name names, but so we'll call her Susie Q. I don't know. We'll call her Susie Q. So if I had a magic wand, Anna,
Hmm.
and I could make it so Susie Q felt no physical pain, would you want me to wave that magic wand? So her her muscles don't hurt, she doesn't get stomach aches, she never gets a headache. You want me to wave that magic wand, right?
Pretty much. I keep
Yeah.
thinking it's probably not healthy in the long run, but man.
Right? Okay. Perfect answer. That goes right into um, uh, what I want to talk about. And I use physical pain before jumping to emotions because it's kind of easier to see. Okay,
Yeah,
of course we don't want our kids to feel pain. Of course we ourselves don't want to feel pain.
right,
But think about if um, Susie Q touched a hot stove and didn't feel pain. What
right.
would happen?
She'd keep touching hot stoves.
Yeah. Or she wouldn't notice, she wouldn't know to pull her hand away until she started to, I don't know, smell that
Yeah,
her finger was burning
she'd
off,
definitely get more hurt one way or the other.
Yeah. And you can extrapolate that to, okay, she doesn't feel pain of a cavity. So what happens if she doesn't feel that pain of a cavity? You don't know to take her to the doctor. You don't know to remind her to brush her teeth. And, she loses her teeth or her jaw
Yeah,
gets infected. And kind of all the way to kind of the worst case scenario, if you don't feel the pain of appendicitis,
yeah,
that's life threatening.
right.
So pain is a message saying, hey, something's going on here. Pay a little bit of attention to it and figure out what you want to do. So if you're touching a hot stove, your brain goes, okay, something weird is happening with your finger. Look around, see if you're touching a hot stove, and, hey, maybe pull your finger away.
Right.
Um, or if you have pain from a cavity, oh, hey, that hurts, maybe call the dentist, set an appointment, kind of get that taken care of. Um, with the finger in the hot stove, once you pull your finger off the hot stove, if you're kind of maybe really slow to learn things, you maybe want your finger to hurt a little longer so you don't touch the hot stove tomorrow. But really, once you learn that lesson, you don't need that pain anymore.
Right.
And our brain doesn't turn off that pain just because of the way it's wired.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely a great idea to mask that pain with, burn salve or something after you've pulled your finger off the hot stove,
Right.
right? Masking it before you pull your finger off the hot stove, not a great plan, you know.
True.
If you have toothache pain, you call the dentist. The dentist says, "Hey, I don't have an appointment for 3 days." In those 3 days, since you've already taken the action you need to take, you don't need that pain as a reminder anymore.
Hmm.
So again, you can try to mask or minimize or take an aspirin or whatever to dull that pain because you've already learned the lesson. You've already taken in that lesson.
Right.
If you set the dentist appointment for 3 days from now and on day two you're there like, yeah, no, I don't think I want to go to the dentist, then maybe you do need to feel that pain for those 3 days to remind yourself this is an important thing to pay attention to. Yeah. So for sure, we don't want our kids to feel pain, but it's really important that they do. It's really important that they feel that pain, and then also really important that they think about what that pain indicates and then what action they want to take because of that pain.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's pain, like migraine pain, that has no lesson to it. For example, I get migraines sometimes. So sometimes I get migraines because I eat things that I know, or if I eat them, I get migraines, you know? So maybe
Yeah.
that's a little lesson. But sometimes I get migraines, you know, because my brain is weird. You know, there's no
Yeah.
lesson. Sometimes there's definitely a lesson, and sometimes there's a lesson, but we choose to continue on with that pain. And I think of things like weightlifting, or we want to run a marathon, so we go jogging and we know we're feeling pain, but we want to
Yeah.
improve our endurance. So we push through that pain and we accept that pain and say, I get that pain is happening, but I'm going to accept that pain and make the decision to continue to do what I'm doing, to continue to metaphorically hold my finger to that hot stove because there's some good reason for it.
That makes me
Okay.
think of martial artists who literally punch a post over and over and over to build up tolerance in their hands, and it hurts, but
Oh,
it's a thing.
I've never thought of that. I just always assumed they were magical and it just didn't hurt.
No, they actually do train themselves up to it.
Interesting. And yeah, that's a great example
Yeah.
of something that where you say, I want to learn this skill. I understand that there's going to be pain on the way and I'm willing to do it.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's a physical thing. So we're gonna move on to fear.
Okay.
And I'm gonna ask you if you could wave a magic wand and Susie Q was never afraid, never nervous, never anxious, and all those levels of fear, and all those are levels of fear all the way from terrified to worried,
Mildly perturbed.
mildly perturbed, all the way to truly terrified.
Yeah.
She was always confident, always brave, always willing to just jump in and do something. Do you want me to wave that magic wand?
Again, very, 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 very tempting.
Very tempting, right? Yeah. So I know the reasons why I wouldn't want to wave that magic wand. Why would you want your daughter to feel worried or anxious or even afraid?
I would want her to be aware of her surroundings, not just physically, but also emotionally. I'd want her to know that these feelings of anxiety or fear or unsure, that they exist for a reason, and that they're telling her that something isn't quite right or something needs to be looked at or addressed,
Hmm.
because these are all of your senses, all of your emotions are just your sensory. It's there's something going on. It's not hypersensory. It's not magic. It's something is happening, and your body is trying to tell you that however it can. Your mind is
Yep.
trying to tell you that however it can.
And
So,
exactly the same thing with pain. Look around, say, is that something that I need to do something about?
mhm.
Is that something that I'm going to feel and my brain is kind of misfiring a little bit, so I want to mask it?
Yeah,
Or is it something that I'm willing to push through the fear to get to a different goal.
Yeah.
So, for sure, all the way from, if I tell this story of someone I knew who, as a kid, so glad this wasn't my kid, heard the phrase hit the ground running and
Hmm.
decided to jump off the roof because he thought
Oh.
he could hit the ground running. Yeah.
Oh no.
Right? Two broken bones.
Uh huh.
Thankfully, that's all.
Thank
Um,
goodness. Okay.
Oddly, it was an ankle and a collarbone on the same side, so crutches were problematic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? Really, really wish that kid had a little more fear, a little more. Maybe I should ask someone about this. Maybe I should think about it a little bit more. Maybe I should jump off a chair first, you know? So that fear definitely is saying, I think maybe you need to do a little more research, or I think you need to do a little more prep, you know?
Yeah.
All the way from something as serious as that to a spelling test tomorrow for a child.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm fine with that spelling test. I don't need to study. Whereas if there's a little bit of anxiety, ugh, I might get a bad grade or I might not know all the words.
Hmm.
That anxiety is going to, they can look at that anxiety and say, oh, maybe I do want to look over those words one more time, or maybe I want to have, uh, you know, Anna read me those words again, or
Hmm.
maybe, I want to take some action. And again, sometimes we say, thank you, fear, for bringing that to my attention. And now I need to take some steps. Other times we say, fear, you're kind of off track on this. I'm afraid to um, like test anxiety in general.
Yeah.
When you already feel that you already know that you're as prepared as you possibly can be,
Hmm.
then you kind of say, okay, anxiety, be quiet. I've heard you. I've done what I need to do, and now I'm going to ignore you.
Hmm.
And other times we say, I know this is a scary thing, but the reward is big enough that I make the decision to push through that fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
And my personal example of that is when my sister asked me to sing at her wedding. At the time, my singing experience was seventh grade choir, and that's
Okay.
it.
Yep.
Um, but I can't, I'm not going to say no to that. I was so scared, you know,
Mm.
but I'm going to push through that fear. I also did prepare. I practiced the song. I actually took a couple of singing lessons. I had a plan for who I was going to stare at the congregation, and how I was going to manage that anxiety. I kind of knew that there wasn't a way for me to do that and not feel anxiety,
Yeah.
but the reward was big enough that I'm willing to take on that anxiety. So when our kids are afraid, it's important to listen to those feelings and help them kind of analyze and make that decision about what action to take, whether to take an action, whether to ignore the fear, or maybe even increase the fear, which I'm sure the mom of that boy who jumped off the roof to hit the ground running really wished
Yes.
for.
Right.
So we get a little more difficult, and if I had a magic wand and I could wave it to make it so Susie Q never felt angry. That's a tougher one for most people. So never angry. Everything's always okay with her
That one, actually, I would say no, I wouldn't.
because
Because, and this is, I guess, society and my own experience informing it, but we so often get told not to be angry.
mhm,
But anger is actually a very important response. You shouldn't always be angry, and you shouldn't use your anger as an excuse to hurt other people. But
mhm.
to be angry in and of itself is not a flaw. And that's kind of a
So
high horse I have
okay.
because, generally speaking, if you are angry about something, it's because something has pushed your buttons, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent.
Mhm.
and that needs to be thought through. And sometimes it's healthy to be angry.
Okay. So why? What's the healthiness about it? What are the blessings of it? What's the gift of anger?
For me, the gift of anger is that it's a moment of clarity within yourself of acknowledging that something's not okay.
Mhm.
Your boundary has been pushed. Somebody has treated you in a way that you're not okay with. Life sucks. Whatever it is, it's a reality of life. And sometimes you just need that moment of clarity, of grounding in the moment of this sucks. This is
Mhm.
not okay. This is not acceptable.
Mhm.
Even if you can't change it, even if the people around you aren't going to change and acknowledge or respect that your boundary has been crossed, it's still important to have that moment of understanding and clarity. And there's a little bit of release that comes from that
Mhm.
acknowledgement. Not just and even just from feeling the feeling itself, but the acknowledgement within yourself of this is not okay, this sucks.
Mhm. They do this study, this experiment where they have people, uh, two groups. One group is allowed to say swear words, and the other group isn't.
Yeah.
Okay? So one group
Okay.
can show anger and the other group can't, and they have them hold their hand in ice water and then
Mm.
say how much, or no, they don't say how much does it hurt. They measure how long they can tolerate their hand in ice water. And if you put your hand in ice water and you just keep your hand in ice water, you can keep it in there for a while. But if you
Mm-hmm.
put your hand in ice water and you're able to say, blah, blah, I'm not going to say a swear word right now, holy Murgatroyd, whatever, and
Right.
you're allowed to say those words, it's a statistical difference. People can hold their hands in longer if they're able to feel that anger, acknowledge that anger, even though they're not changing anything.
Hmm.
So I think you're absolutely right. It helps us develop um, strength and tolerance and push through things that we wouldn't otherwise have the strength or fortitude or whatever to push through. The other point you brought up is that we get angry about things that matter to us. So
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's true with all emotions. We get afraid of things that matter to us. I'm not afraid of being caught in public without makeup. It's not important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid of, saying the wrong word. I'm not afraid of people laughing at me when I do my classes. I often make mistakes and I laugh right along with everybody who laughs at me. That's just not a fear of mine. It's not a value of mine. That's not important to me. One thing I do get angry about is when I watch a movie and there's a therapist in the movie who is unethical.
Yeah.
I I watch a movie with other people. At the end of the movie, they're like, "Oh my God, that therapist! I can't believe she diagnosed this or broke confidentiality here or gave that piece of advice or suggested that
Mm-hmm.
medication. That's so wrong." And the other person is there like, "There was a therapist in that movie?" You know, right?
Yeah.
So my anger, I want to keep having that anger because it solidifies my value that I
Mm-hmm.
want to be a good therapist. I don't want to fall into complacency and make those mistakes that I see made. And it has to do with mental health stigma and what people think about therapy, and that it stops people from coming to therapy when they see incompetent therapists in media. So
Right. Yeah.
even me going on and on about it, you can see my anger goes up because it's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, the real practical reason to feel that anger, besides just helping us develop tolerance, to help us tap into our strength and fortitude, and also to kind of remind us of our values and solidify our values in a very practical way. Anger um, makes us more impulsive, so it stops some of our frontal lobe processing. And yes, that can sometimes lead to violence, not always. And certainly there can be violence without anger. People tend to think anger is the culprit when violence happens. Pretty actually rarely is anger the culprit.
I agree.
Um, yeah. So we get more impulsive. we get more streamlined. We like get real focused, like I just did about therapists and movies.
Hmm.
Everything else falls away, and that's what I focus on. And it again gives us that bravery, so that if we do decide, and again, you feel angry, you decide, do I want to do something about it? Do I want to increase that anger feeling so that I am more likely to do something, to take an action? Do I want to ignore that anger? Is that
Hmm.
anger not a value of mine or not a response uh, to something I truly, truly value? And with your kids, you want to have that conversation. Okay, I get that you're angry that your sister got a toy and you didn't.
Hmm.
However, I want to teach you the value that sometimes life isn't fair or whatever. Or you want to say to your kid, you lent something to your friend said they'd return it, and your friend didn't return it. I
Hmm.
That's important to me. So I think I want you to take that anger and say something to that friend. Be a little brave in confronting that friend and saying, "Hey, I want that thing back."
Hmm.
You know. So it gives us the kind of impulsive push, and it also gives us that single-mindedness, and it gives us that bravery to take action if we choose to take action. And if you look at um, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, it spells mad. You know,
Hmm.
these mothers got mad, and when I was a kid, when someone killed someone because they were driving intoxicated, it was kind of like, oh well, kind of happens.
Mm.
Truly, I remember that, and I remember that push of saying, no, this is serious. Really, if people drive drunk, there should be some consequence, and there should be more education around not driving drunk, and there should be some kind of um, uh, shame, or at least responsibility about if you're going to drink, make a
Right.
plan beforehand. The word designated driver was not a word when I
Hmm.
was a teenager. That wasn't a term. And it was because some people got really angry. They didn't punch anybody, probably. Maybe some of them did, I don't know. But that wasn't the movement. The movement wasn't about violence. It was
Right.
definitely about anger. It was about, I'm going to put everything aside. I'm going to use that strength and that single mindedness, and that I don't care about the consequences of this. So that kind of impulsivity, where I'm saying, I'm going to take a stand that I know other people aren't going to like, and I don't care
Yeah.
because this is too important to me. Okay, last big one, and this is the hardest one, and that's sadness. So I wave a magic wand, and Susie Q never feels sad. She's always just a happy, smiley person, just a ray of sunshine all the time. You want me to wave it? It's tough.
Again, I wish the world were that simple, but no.
Yeah. So the easiest way to understand that is if your child had a pet, their pet died, you told your child, and your child said, "Okay, what's for dinner?" Would you be worried? And of course you would.
Yeah.
So the gifts of sadness, what sadness tells us, it goes back to that value system. It tells us something is very important to us. And because we feel that sadness, it's that reminder of, okay, my dog died. So when I have an animal that I love, I need to spend more time with that animal, or I need to be super kind to that animal. I
Hmm.
need to change my value system and my actions because I care about that thing. Sadness is what helps us develop empathy, and it's what connects us to other people. So Anna, if you said, uh, you know, oh, I fell down yesterday and broke my leg, and I was there like, yeah, that's interesting. You know, we're not connecting. But if I say, oh
Right.
my goodness, Anna, really? Oh, how are you getting around? Then that connection and that empathy helps me then say, not only helps you feel better about the connection, but also helps me say, can I bring you some soup? Or, whatever. Can I bring you some crutches? Probably better than soup. You know, um, so sadness helps us develop empathy and connection. It also means something's important to us. And again, it can definitely misfire, you
Yeah.
know, and that misfiring isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just kind of be aware of it. People definitely watch sad movies that they cry over, and that's kind of an enjoyable experience. People also watch scary movies that scare them or go on roller coasters, you know, to kind of tap into that and to remind themselves, this is scary. Oh no, I'm safe. This is sad.
Mhm.
Oh, my life is better. So sadness also helps with a sense of gratitude. You know, I'm sad about those things, so I'm going to pay more attention to the things that are good in my life right now. And you can pretty much do that with any emotion, whether you consider it like a one of those negative emotions. Guilt is another one. You don't want your child to never feel guilty. You certainly don't want your child to feel guilty or ashamed of everything,
Of course not. No.
right? But there is something where you say, "Oh, I feel guilty or ashamed or embarrassed. Let me look at that. Should I feel guilty
Yeah.
or ashamed or embarrassed? And if I should, what action do I need to take? And if it's a misfire that goes against my value system, or if it's something that I can't take an action on, then how do I set that aside?"
Mhm.
So that's my kind of explanation about why it is so important to listen to feelings and to help children feel those feelings, think after or while they're having those feelings, decide on an action or a non-action. But if we block those feelings, then those lessons all the way from don't touch a hot stove to study for your spelling tests to brush your teeth to don't jump off a roof and think you can hit the ground running, um, those lessons come much more harder if you don't have that emotion to kind of cement those in or to bring attention to those. So we may call them negative emotions, or we may think, anger is a bad thing, or, no fear is a good thing. Not always.